Hello and welcome. In a previous video, I built this Minotaur sculpture. Starting with the wire frame, using Spulpy to form the body, adding a base layer of leather to go underneath his armor. Then I created armor using styrene. And finally moving on to prime and paint. So today's video is about creating a diorama environment for the Minotaur. This should be a fun project. Let's get started. For the diorama base, I'm using this rectangle picture frame. So I'll start by inserting a couple of pieces of foam to not only fill the frame, but give me a little bit of a reveal. I've never done a water feature before, so let's do that today. My plan is to have the Minotaur approaching from the left side. A few of these leftover foam scraps will create a bit of interest and elevation on that side of the diorama. To create the rock face profile, I start with some diagonal cuts. I started with just a dental tool to scrape, but ended up switching to a flathead screwdriver. It worked perfect for this. So just taking my time, alternating between scraping the face as well as using the knife to gouge out some of the edges to try to create some interest and some variety. Okay, I'm happy with the rock profile. Let's go ahead and clean up. The right side of the diorama is going to be a campsite. I wanted some elevation, but I want it to be relatively flat, so using some scraps of cork worked perfect for this. With these two small elevations complete, let's go ahead and cover them with some plaster cloth and then a bit of Sculpting mold to tie everything together and smooth out some of the rough spots, as well as create a few earthen mounds. And the final step prior to paint will be just a little bit of fiber paste from Golden to create a bit of an erosion effect on the face of those earthen mounds that I created with the Sculpting mold. Okay, so one more step prior to painting. I do plan on having a campfire in the campsite. So I need to install a place to put a battery pack, a place to run the wires, as well as drill a hole in the frame to put a switch. Let's get the construction out of the way. For painting the walls, I'm using a range from almost black with a bit of gray in it, up through medium grays, up to lighter grays. So darker in the recess and lighter grays on the raised parts. For the path and the area around the campsite, I'm using Tamiya texture paint. So it's really just a thick paint with sand in it, but it's acrylic. It dries really hard and it's got a really fine texture to it. It's paintable and it's compatible with the Tamiya paints that I'm thinning with IPA. So it works great. For the earth tones, I'm going to start with just the two darker ones from this picture. Once the features get more established for location, I'll add in some of the mid and lighter earth tones. After the initial earth tones were put down, I added a bit of color to the bottom of the stream, just a greenish blue mixture. I applied Liquitex Matte Medium white glue and put down a layer of static grass. The base layer for the grass is 4mm static grass. Should be nice coverage and base layer for a wooded area. The static grass has a nice green base tone to it, but again, I need a bit of variety. So I'm going to use some darker, some mids, and also leaning towards the yellow-green color for the grass and eventually trees and bushes. In addition to the colors, I'm also going to introduce 5 or 6 different textures from ground cover to leaves to moss, and I think that'll start to give more of a natural look through variety. For the resin pour, I used a 2-part epoxy, and I tinted it with a bit of blue and a bit of green. So just taking my time with this pour. I don't want to overdo it. No need to rush. With the base color set and the epoxy needing time to cure, now is a good time to switch over to painting the figures. Let's get to that. For the native tribe, I'm using the black powder brand Woodland Indians tribe, but without a lot of the extra accessories, the swords and the rifles. I wanted them to be more of the hunter-gatherer moving into a settlement in their time span, and I've named them the Zendawa. From here on, I'll refer to them as the Zendawa tribe. After glue up and some initial cleanup, I gave them a coat of primer and decided to install a brass pin. Since the diorama is foam-based, it'll make them easy to stick anywhere I want. Versus gluing them down, this makes them portable. For the skin tone, I'm using 3 colors. I'm using a dark flesh as the mid-tone, then the Vallejo dark flesh tone, as well as the model color light flesh for the highlights. Started out with a thin mid-tone applied with the airbrush just to give a base coat. Next, I decided to paint the leather. And the reason for that is the leather straps were raised, so getting the base coat on the top and the sides of those, and then coming back and reapplying the mid-tone on the skin adjacent to the straps just turned out to be easier. After that initial touch-up was done, I did a bit of wet blending in certain spots, using the dark, the mid, and the light to try to give that shadow and light effect. Base hair was black with some brown highlights. In some of the headpieces, I added a bit of red or orange to give that fire look. For the leather, building on that base coat and chocolate brown for the first highlight. And then the second was a heavy wash using AK's orange with the chocolate brown mixed. After that wash was dry, the next highlight was using the same orange from that previous mix. And then the final highlight was some dry brushed light brown. With that, these guys are finished. Switching back to the diorama build, first thing I need is a benchtop reset. Okay, that is so much better. For the campfire, I'm going to use this flickering LED from a tea light. I can use this AA battery holder and then wire in a switch. Pretty simple. To get the wires on the LED leads, I'm going to cut the insulation back pretty long. I'm going to use a wire wrapping tool to spiral the wire onto the LED leads and then just give it a touch of solder. This is a great method to secure the wire, allowing for minimal contact with the soldering iron, because too much heat can easily burn out an LED. With the switch and the batteries in place, a bit of hot glue to hold the wires in place, all set. Nothing quite like a soothing campfire, that's nice. After the resin cured, I did a bit of cleanup on that, added a bit of moss to the back tiered wall, and then added a coat of white glue on top of the water. And while that was drying, it was time to spend a bit of time on the Minotaur. Meet Thulgar, son of King Kragar the Warlord. More on Thulgar's story later on. First, let's give him some battle damage. Having the blood look fresh over the dark skin tone was a challenge. You'll see repeated changes to that throughout the video. I ended up painting the arrows a wood color. I'm not sure why I decided to not paint the fletchings before putting them on the Minotaur. A little bit of lapse of forward thinking on that. Live and learn. With the updates to Thulgar complete for now, let's do a bit of work on the campfire and then do a placement of the trees and some of the campsite items, and just to start visualizing the balance of the diorama and just get an overall visualization of how it's looking so far. So let's do that, and then we'll take everything off and work more on the campfire. To keep the focus of the video on the diorama build, I decided that the scratch-built trees and shrubs are going to be in their own mini video, and also the scratch-built campsite structures. So be on the lookout for those videos. I recently showed a picture of the Minotaur to a friend, and his initial thought was that the blood looked like it wasn't very fresh, which was true. It looked like it was dried, and it got me thinking that I really liked the feedback. If you see something that you like, if you see something that you think could be improved upon, please comment on it. I think that's fantastic. It's a way to learn together and collaborate. So I'm all for it. I really appreciated his feedback, so I just wanted to share that. It looks like the stream could use a little bit more interest. So taking some 12mm static grass and pinching it with my fingers, dipping it in white glue, and just sticking them down. And so once they're dry, they'll look like reeds growing up out of the water. It's a bit disappointing that these figures came with bows but no arrows or quivers, so let's make some. These are the same arrows I used earlier in the video to insert into the Minotaur. Some digital kit bashed arrows, 3D printed. I'll just take a few of the arrows and bind them together with some CA. And then a bit of magic sculpt, just wrap it around, form a rough shape of a quiver, And when dry, I'll paint the quiver to match that worn leather look. And then I'll paint the arrows with wood color and then off-white for the fletching. Once dry, glue them on the back of the archers, and I think that really completes the look. I'm happy with that. Okay, time for a bit of weathering powder. So using a variety of pigments, I'll add some powder to the trail, blend in some earth tones with the soot and ash around the campsite, and then a bit on top of the wall and on the face. I really like the looks of the weathering powder. Okay, that looks pretty good. This has been a really fun project, and I've enjoyed sharing this with you. So thank you for watching, and thank you for the support. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. It would really help me to grow the channel. And we'll see you soon. Take care. It has been over 1,000 years since Thulgar's great ancestors traveled far north to intercept a traveling caravan holding their enslaved brethren captive as they transported them to a new location for continued arena battles. Ever since that day, when the Minotaurs achieved victory and freed their people forever, the land surrounding that battlefield has become sacred to the Minotaur. So when word reached the Minotaur from a passing caravan trader that a recently settled tribe known as the Zendawa is building a forward hunting camp near this land to support their growing Zendawa tribe population, Prince Thulgar, being young and headstrong, decided to engage the Zendawa tribe on his own.